So, welcome to our maiden voyage into the Insta and Facebook Live worlds. Something that we've been wanting to do for a while. It was always on the back burner, and with everything that's going on currently, it got quickly moved up to a little higher priority. So here you have it. This is a fun way, and hopefully we'll try to make it as interactive as possible as we move forward. To get in front of you, talk about some of the wines, talk about what we have going on here currently, and hopefully be able to engage with everybody and all the members and fans out there of the wines kind of across the country. So yeah, excited. Want to start off by saying thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the support. It's been amazing to kind of see and to see orders coming in, and even though you guys can't make it here right now, everyone's reaching out and showing us a lot of love. So thank you very much for that. Keeps the lights on, keeps us here looking pretty behind the cameras. And with that, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, I think that's great. Pretty excited. It's going to be pretty interesting. I feel like we're going to go through some wines today over the next couple of weeks, trying to pick different themes. That's something that we're trying to do, that we are going to try to do every Saturday, kind of looking down a time slot that works for everyone. The goal is to have it pretty interactive, so if you guys have any questions, make sure you throw those at us at any time there. We'll try to answer as many as possible. And then, yeah, kind of keep it simple and fun, really is kind of what the goal is there. So what have we been doing, right? Because we've been closed for almost 2 weeks now. So tasting is not taking much of our time, unfortunately. Although we are tasting a lot because you've been pretty busy in the cellar in particular. So yeah, what have we been doing this past couple of weeks there?
So lots of blending. So we have the 18 wines that will be set to go to bottle this summer. And we added a new wine this last year, L'Envol, so we're going to try to go forward with that again. We're playing with potentially a couple other new blend ideas and options, and some additional cellar age stuff back there, which will be a lot of fun, and we'll kind of be rolling those out bits here and there. But so a lot of different wines to taste through. A lot of different wines that you guys have been tasting through with me. But good progress. Honestly, the 2018 vintage, which we'll dive into the whites, a couple whites from that vintage today, but a pretty spectacular vintage. It kind of ideal weather, we got great maturation on the vine. Things came in later in 18 than they had for several years. So it was kind of nice to see, produce some really, really stunning wines, and I can't wait to get them into the bottle.
So out of curiosity, how many barrels did you have to taste through to put some of the blends in 2018?
Well, we have probably about 100 and say roughly about 140 barrels for the vintage, and I go through all of them and kind of start playing with combinations for stuff. So yeah, lots of arduous tasting. Not really. It's like the days where I'm soaking wet and cleaning stuff outside and it's freezing cold. These are the kinds of days I look forward to. So all that hard work, you finally get to taste what you're working towards.
Cool, perfect. Well, as for myself, I've been pretty busy out in the vineyard. We actually just are going through bud break this week. I walked through all the Grenache yesterday. Everything is pushing, and all the Syrah as well is going through right now. So the Mourvèdre is a little behind, but I think we're hitting some warmer temperature the next week or so. So that's going to keep us on our toes, making sure everything grows well. We are fortunate we had a nice little bit of rain. We managed to accumulate, I think, 3.5 inches this past 2 weeks. So that's really good for us on what looked like a pretty dry year, at least in January. But it catched up a little bit, so looking good for the spring there. And then I must say my welding skills are also picking up quite a bit right now. I know you dealt with it last year. That piece of machinery there is just not cooperating very well. it's put me to the test for sure. Patience is key, and trial and error. So I've been spending my week welding quite a bit, learning through mistakes and kind of getting some of his feedback on it and some of Terry's as well. So pretty busy on that hand. But yeah, it's been fun and a big learning curve for sure. But that's good though. I like it. Keeps it very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's always plenty of odd jobs to be done here.
Yeah.
Essentially we're farmers. Farm equipment breaks on a regular basis. So yeah, you get plenty good with the welder in no time.
Yeah. I mean, I came back from my days off on Thursday, and then next thing I know, I see a belt on the counter there, and then it was the mower that totally broke off. So I was like, oh well, I guess my day is gonna be taken part with that as well. Just add on to the list. But all good though. It's always fun.
Absolutely.
Always learning and always good skills to get overall, for sure. All right, so what are we going through today? What are we tasting?
So we kind of pulled the 18 Grenache Blanc to start, and then the 18 Gap. These are two wines that went out in our most recent release, so we figured there's a good chance that some people have them handy, and it's white wine, so they're kind of ready to go out the gate, and something fun to get into to start. One of the ideas with this moving forward is that if you've got some wines in your cellar that you're kind of interested in hearing about, seeing where they're at, we can shoot us an email, comment, reach out to us, and we'll kind of look at adapting the wines we're going through each Saturday to kind of reflect, what it is that everybody out there wants to taste. So, give us some feedback that way. It would be greatly encouraged. But to start, we figured we'll go through, a couple wines that recently went out. So the Grenache Blanc.
Yeah, let's start with that one. Gonna start pouring it, and so we're gonna start about talking about the vintage, really, what the 18 was like, what was the weather like. That was my first harvest, so I came in blind on it. I did not know what I was doing very much. I was just following what Phil was kind of directing me to do, as well as Terry and Will, been all very helpful in that. So I can barely remember. Besides the punch downs that I remember really well, it's now on my top list of the most things that I don't like to do. But it's been for me a big learning curve that first vintage there, that first year, and it was a big harvest too. We processed quite a bit of fruit that year.
Yes, very bountiful, but kind of nice and paced well. It was pretty spread out. I mean, I remember starting. Maybe first week of September, mm-hmm. and then the kind of the last to come in, some Coastal Syrah and some Mourvèdre came in the first and second week of November. So quite a bit of time in there. Mm-hmm. Again, we got back to some good hang time, which is something that you always kind of hope for in a vintage. And looking back at it, temperatures were for us in Paso pretty moderate, still warm, but for the most part we weren't soaring into the hundreds, too much. We had our kind of customary late August burst of heat to kind of help push things, or late mm-hmm. October burst of heat to kind of push things through, which we kind of have learned to count on vintages like that. But again, just picturesque. It's kind of when I was hopping around cellars and talking with other winemakers in the area, it's the kind of vintage that you hear people describe when it's like what they want to see, the most kind of ideal setup that way. So a really solid vintage, something that we did a little different in terms of the winemaking for the 18 whites and 18 rosé was that we cold fermented everything. So really, really low temperatures, upper 50s, lower 60s, and really, really long fermentations. The Grenache Blanc's kind of fun because it's the only one that's not completely fermented in barrel. We use a lot of neutral white wine barrels to ferment in, and then every once in a while, a brand new barrel that we'll kind of toss in the mix. The Grenache Blanc though was done in tank. Mostly, I'd say about 8 barrels worth in tank, and then 2 barrels worth that were actually fermented in barrel. 1 brand new French oak barrel and 1 neutral, mm-hmm. And so all of it fermented cool still, so very long fermentations. These actually fermented clean through the new year and right up to the week before bottling. So
yeah, that was the little sweat there.
yeah,
including the rosé. Rosé was the same story there.
Same
dragged
base.
on forever through the holiday and came back after Christmas. It was just like, oh, we need to get those things going now.
Yeah, just kind of a lot of me telling Terry and Jen every day that don't worry about it, it'll get through, and then kind of like fingers crossed, behind my back, and a lot of hope in there. But really, it produced some pretty stunning aromatics on the wines. You sweat it out a lot, but it's kind of worth the, worth all of that concern and worry, because what you get in the end is just an amazing set of fresh aromatics. What happens when you ferment? When you ferment wines, white wine's a little warmer. You sometimes blow off esters and things like that, which are really pretty aromatics that you want to capture and you want in the wine if possible. So these are, to me, this is some of my favorite white that I think we've done here to date. Definitely my favorite that I've been a part of.
Nice, perfect. And again, just prior to fermentation, there, how was the fruit looking on the vines, and also the process before it goes into that fermentation there? Because it's pretty particular for the whites. I know everybody out there has a different technique. Doing longer maceration, get the fruit for 48 hours before pressing it off, and then just get the fruit, the juice fermented. How was the fruit looking on the vines there?
Fruit was looking fantastic, and so the orientation of the white rose was actually different than orientation on the rest of the property. And what I mean by that is the direction that the rows are run. The whites run east to west, and so the path of the sun pretty much travels over the top of the vine, so you get some nice shading. Our concern typically is you watching out for any kind of sunburn or anything like that on the whites. And we're particular. We'll go through and we'll make a pass the night before, the day before we pick, and then pick that night. And so, we do a good job cleaning everything up. So the fruit looked fantastic coming in. And then with Grenache Blanc, it's all about keeping the freshness on it. So there's no maceration time, nothing like that. It's bring it in, process it, and press it off right away.
So only the juice goes into the tank and the barrels at that point, and then that's what's going to be fermented.
Yeah, it's the first thing we'll process when it comes in. That night. So we'll kind of line up everything. The white wine gets processed first, the Grenache Blanc in the very front in case we are bringing in another white, and then it goes right from the end of the sorting line into the press basket, and right from the press basket into the press immediately.
Nice, excellent. So let's go ahead and smell it there. See what we get out of the nose. Grenache Blanc is. I just like the style of the whites that we get out here. It's fantastic. Just really, really powerful. Nice nose, crisp as well. Alcohol wise, for the 18s there, what's the alcohol on those guys? I don't remember it to be super, super high, but for Paso at least.
Yeah, I think we do. You'll have to look in the bottle for the alcohol. I don't have that kind of thing memorized.
It seems like we might be just below, but right in the 14.5 there, which is kind of the sweet spot, right? Something that you find over the years now in terms of the alcohol.
Yeah, it's kind of been a nice spot for us personally. You pick a little too early and you kind of have a little lean wine, which is certainly not bad. Just kind of like this is, I think, a little more reserved Passerol's rendition of a white wine, so you're going to have a little more alcohol. I think you can certainly pick things to try to get it down into the low 14s, high 13s, but to me you kind of start losing some of the characteristics that we're personally kind of targeting for the white wine.
Mm-hmm. So what do you get on the nose there? What are the aromatics that comes through, and where those aromatics come from? Will that be a barrel? Will it be, again, the hanging time on the vines there, the kind of the sugar concentration you get in that process before harvesting it? So
the Grenache Blanc is a very clear and distinct aromatic wine. It's got great notes of white flowers that just kind of come pouring out, and jasmine and honeysuckle in there. And really, to me, there's always a lot of, with Paso white Rhones, you tend to get a lot of stone fruit and a lot of characteristics like that. And you get that here, but the Grenache Blanc always shows a little bit of like an Asian pear kind of quality, which I enjoy. It kind of sets it apart, yet again. And we planted these three white varietals to kind of complement each other. So the Grenache Blanc's role in the Gap and kind of in and of itself is to be kind of an aromatic booster, an aromatic bump to the wine.
We have a question. Lee Freeman wants to know, Phil, what creates a lean wine?
So when I say lean, it's kind of I'm looking at the balance of the acidity and the alcohol in the wine. So alcohol adds to the body of the wine. When you drop the alcohol down and the acidity up, you start getting a wine that feels thinner on the palate because you're literally kind of taking something that adds body and dialing it back, and you're adding to it instead acid, which kind of also takes away a little bit from the body. So, we kind of strive. We have a balance in a particular spot that we tend to go for, a certain acidity on the whites that we like to see. That kind of complements the alcohol that is there. To me, this Grenache Blanc still stays light. It's got good acidity to it, and so it's not cumbersome. It's not too heavy, but definitely not too lean. And so hopefully that kind of clarified that, Lee. Thank you, producer Brandon. Grenache Blanc. The Rhone Rangers have done a great job here in Paso. Of really highlighting this white. It's something that really should be in more people's wine fridges. I agree with Cyril, like white wines are kind of underrated in Paso. Reds get all the glory. And so, oftentimes people will kind of skip out on the whites. So it's definitely something worth having, and wines that I really enjoy, and wines that really for me personally and kind of California cuisine wise, you can work a lot with in the kitchen, pair with a lot of different stuff.
I totally agree. I think I wasn't expecting this type of whites to come out of California, honestly. I just moved to California 2 years ago. Again, back in New York, you get a bunch of influence from Italy and French wines. And so I kind of know those styles a lot more. And I was expecting something much sweeter, actually. But coming through here, and not only us, but there's definitely other wineries out there. For me, Tapas Creek still is my reference when it comes down to whites, because I just like the French style. It's super crisp, very light, very easy to drink, very pleased with those. And I think those encompass that characteristic, but there's something a little more that gives it a little more complexity to it, and I like that a lot, though. I drink that Big Ball, 100% for me is fantastic. The Grenache Blanc, very, very nice. Any shellfish on that will be fantastic. It breaks down spiciness and sauces. It just works very, very well. So I've been enjoying those a lot, for sure. The acidity you get.
Absolutely, yeah. And something like the Grenache Blanc with kind of the aromatics that it has and things like that, I completely agree. Like I'm thinking kind of some shrimp tacos with like some kind of fruit-based salsa.
Yeah.
Mango, something like that.
Yeah, that can cut that sweetness really well with that acidity there. So I'm really pleased with that. Yeah, I like the nose a lot on that. This is super clean, super bright. It just doesn't burst your nostrils there. So like some acidity, you talk about acidity. Some of those out there are just like pure acid that will come through the nose pretty strongly. This is not it. This is really, really pleasant there. I like that a lot. As for the mouthfeel, I tasted it already. You have as well. I just love the way it is. Like the approach on the tongue is super, super delicate, and the finish of it is just it gets more umph into your palate as you swallow the wine. Just kind of swirl it into the tongue there.
Absolutely. You asked before about where different components are kind of coming from for the wine. There's a tiny bit of oak influence, but really it's not. We actually didn't use a new oak barrel for the Grenache Blanc. We only do about 50 cases of the individual varietals, and so we just kind of pick a couple barrels and try to make it something that reflects the variety really well. So I mean, one of the barrels we picked was actually once used, but it's minimal. I'd say minimal oak influence on this. I mean, it really is pretty true to varietal character, and definitely not oak influence. We kind of use the oak always towards the Gap.
Yeah, cool. Very nice. All right.
Tasty. Gotta
Yeah,
say.
pretty tasty. Maybe a little cooler, maybe a little too cold. I just pulled those out of the fridge maybe 30 minutes ago now. What do you think? A little too cold?
It's a little cool. I think that in general,
I know it's always a subject. You know, how cold should be the whites? I like mine super cold because I like it refreshing. I like it when it's a hot day out there. I drink on the patio and just want something other than water and ice, something to refresh me. But I totally get it though. It does shut down some of the aromatics in there, and it just pops that acidity even stronger. Maybe the mouthfeel of it at least is probably stronger with acidity there.
Yeah, cooler the wine gets, the more acid you tend to perceive. You know, the alcohol that's present will be kind of suppressed a little bit. Like I said, the alcohol's not super high on these, so you know, and the acidity is there. So I personally prefer white wines that we do, and white wines that have in Paso typically warmer than refrigerator temperature.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of me. Rosé, cool it down as much as you want.
Yeah.
And to each his own. Whatever temperature you prefer that. You can definitely see on a hot day, having a cool wine's nice.
Right.
We get a lot of hot days here in Paso.
All right. So the next one we got here. This is the 18 Gap. So the Gap is the one I've been doing, and that's the blend of all the three white varietals that we grow here on the estate. As I mentioned, the whites grow side by side here. It's just under half acre of each of the varietals, between the Grenache Blanc, Picpoul Blanc, and then the Roussanne finally. So the Gap sees always a bit of a shift in the blend, depending the percentage there. What the style is every year is slightly different. This time around there's a bit more Grenache in it, and it's backed up with some Picpoul and some Roussanne. So why don't you run us through those Roussanne in particular and the Picpoul varietal, and how they differ from the Grenache Blanc in the vineyard maybe, and then let's go into more in depth with the aromatics of it.
Okay, so the thing that stands out to me most if we're talking kind of in the vineyard is honestly Roussanne's kind of known as the princess vine. They all ripen at very different paces. It takes a lot of personal care to farm the Roussanne, and so we actually even though we don't grow a whole lot, we end up making multiple passes on Roussanne because you've got one plant right here that'll ripen at a completely different pace than the plant right next to it, which is ripening at a different pace than the plant next to it there. So it requires kind of going back, and if we want to catch it at the ideal spot, going through and making several passes, with a kind of group that's trained for all the signs that we're looking for. Either that or you or I going through and marking vines individually that we like, and then passing through with the crew in the morning where everyone can kind of see what's marked and just picking that little bit. So the Roussanne actually we make multiple passes on every year, but it's well worth it. It's one of those varieties that once you get it into the cellar, it's magic to work with. You can do anything you want with it. You can be in stainless steel, it can see oak, you can bottle it early, you can hold on to it and age it in the cellar, you can hold on to it and age it in the bottle. So it's the body, it's the unctuousness that's kind of in there, and just a wonderful varietal to work with and a wonderful base to build a white wine from. I think honestly it throws its weight around quite a bit. So the early kind of like me finding my way with the Gap was controlling how much Roussanne do we really need to build the body of it, and without going over the top with it. Because I think that even going equal parts with it, Roussanne will dominate that wine.
Which was the blend of the 17?
Yes.
The 17 was pretty across the board, just about 33%.
Yeah.
And you're right. I feel this one is probably a little I don't want to say cleaner, but a little lighter on the palate maybe.
I think with the 17, I kind of want to, we sat down, we threw that together. We really wanted to see what equal parts of everything would do. I mean, we kind of had everything planted in equal quantity, so it made sense to do, the closest thing we could to like what a field blend would be. And it was a great experience. It's still a fantastic wine. I just thought, if I really want to dial this in, then I up the Grenache Blanc just that little bit more, and I'm really satisfied with where it made it. Like I said, this wine in particular has been my favorite white wine I've crafted. It's already in a stunning spot. Been an absolute pleasure to drink.
Agree. And Roussanne is it's been getting some traction in Paso, but I feel like you see it more and more. And there's a bunch of people now co-fermenting actually the Roussanne, or either the skins and the seeds, or the entire fruit really, and then just throw it into some of the red ferment there. And that's something I think we did in the 19 harvest.
We did it in 19. I did a little bit in 15 and a little bit in 17. So I guess it's been like an every other year kind of thing. We'll never pick to co-ferment things specifically. It's just like when you get the things that ripen up at the same time, we can kind of go for it. The way that we do that is actually we'll pick that Roussanne to make the white wine in particular first. With Roussanne, we do adopt a little bit of skin contact time, maceration time. We started off with 48 hours. 48 hours is a little heavy-handed. And then we dropped that back to about 24 hours and kind of found that's been a pretty good sweet spot for us. So 24 hours of skin contact time on the crushed skins and the juice. We press that off and then take those skins, the freshly pressed skins, and move those into a ferment. Because the skins of the white wine have all kinds of tannins and different phenolics that really pair well with a lot of the red wines that we do. So we've done that with the Roussanne historically. We're in the middle of the replant right now, so we have a little bit of Viognier as the hope to come in, and the idea is to hopefully pair the Viognier in the same kind of way. Viognier here in Paso actually carries a fair amount of tannin in the skins, and so I'm hoping to give a little bit of a bump naturally without having to do any other kind of side adds. That's always the goal, is let's let the grape speak and kind of let the grape, express vintage and location and where it's from and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, we're pretty excited about that Viognier. That's something you've been looking forward to. That's something you pitched to Terry quite a few times now. And we finally broke through the skin there, and then we're able to get a couple of rows, so we're pretty good.
Minimal amount, yeah. Just really like more so for the co-fermentation. We'll see kind of what we get with the Viognier here. I think that we've had a lot of luck with the other white varieties, and I do think that kind of where it's situated on the property, it's pretty protected from heat and from stuff like that, which I think would be a concern with Viognier. So looking forward to it. There's a lot of great examples of Viognier being done in Paso, so those will be cellar doors that I'll be kind of banging on once it's in the ground and planted and coming to fruition here.
Yeah. So it should be grafted this year, at least this spring there. Again, we're not getting too much. We're cutting down a couple of rows of Grenache Blanc, and I think a row of Roussanne, and it's going to go right in between everything else there. So again, we're looking for the homogeneity between the whites there, just mingling together, get things started in the vineyards, and then later on play with it in the cellar. So it would be pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
So back to the Gap there. So we talked about Roussanne. How about the Picpoul? The Picpoul, we replanted those in early 18.
Yeah, one year prior, right?
Yes.
With the thought that Picpoul's been kind of like the new little favorite kid on the block in terms of white wine varieties. It's everyone who's planted it in Paso has absolutely loved it, and so it's difficult to get your hands on some in the open market. And so with that being said, with the replant, we kind of geared our replant to get the Picpoul in a little earlier, so we get it back online a little earlier. And you don't really want to do without Picpoul once you've had it. So it's a very unique variety. Brings plenty of acidity to it. Early Picpoul. The description I think that works the best with it is like with these white wines, with it blended in there, you get the acidity as you kind of hit the tail end of the wine, which you want, a nice crisp finish. pig pool is acid from the moment it hits your tongue, clean through the end of the taste. So it's can be very aggressive. We actually bottle the pig pool a year in advance of the release and give it a year to age before we unleash it onto anyone's tongue, because it could be pretty darn aggressive early on. So
well, there is this translation from the French, because the Pig Pool Blanc would be the French terminology for it, but it does translate as the lip stinger, if I'm correct. And so I think that describes it, the acidity and the bite that it gets.
it definitely lives up to its name. But it absolute, just a very, very unique white variety. You would think that it was in some new oak sometimes. I mean, even when it's fermenting, it kind of pushes off this little bit of like this spiced honey, and tons and tons and tons of lemon, Meyer lemon, lemon zest, all that kind of stuff. And so the spiced honey is what I think kind of triggers some things. I think that some of those spices and spiced honey quality you can kind of get from a white wine barrel. Our pig pool is all fermented in neutral white oak barrels completely. So it doesn't see any oak influence, anything that way, but you would think that it possibly did.
And would we do the same thing than the Roussanne with the pig pool, have it kind of a 24 to 48 hours on the skin there, or are we pressing it off right away?
That's another right away.
Okay.
Press it off. The Roussanne's the only one where we'll do some skin contact time. The pig pool is, again, get it in, process it right away, press it right away. Both.
You want to keep it clean and you want to keep it as alive as possible.
Absolutely. Pig pool's an interesting one because there's always this balance in wines. We talk about it more so with the red wines, where you want some exposure to oxygen but not too much. And if it's too little, then wines can get reductive and have reductive qualities. Pig pool for a white wine has a very high potential to be reductive. And so we actually kind of, I've done pig pool in stainless steel before. I don't prefer it because it really pushes it towards this reductive side. So you get these kinds of almost kind of flinty, matchsticky kinds of a characteristic, which is like it only lasts the moment it kind of hits the glass and it blows off. But it's still, to me, having a little bit in there can be nice and an interesting factor that you're adding to the wine. But you don't want too much of that. So typically do the barrel ferments because it gives it a little bit of space to breathe, kind of stays more on the that citrus fruit driven kind of a path. I did in 19 introduce a little bit of stainless steel, and actually did in 18 as well, just a touch, one barrel's worth in stainless steel, just to kind of add a little complexity to it.
We have a question.
All right.
So, what does reductive mean? What do you mean by that?
So, reductive in kind of the more scientific sense is just essentially the lack of oxygen kind of in whatever system that you're working in. In wine, it tends to present qualities, like I said, of kind of matchstick. In bad reductive wines where you can kind of get a egg type smell, those are the kinds of things you're trying to avoid given certain varieties. And you can have a few different kind of funky or spicy kinds of components. Some wines, Grenache for example, Grenache is highly sensitive to oxygen, and the fact that oxygen gets in there and it oxidizes quickly. So we'll keep something like Grenache in a more reductive or more protected environment from oxygen. Something that lacks oxygen is kind of what I'm kind of talking about when I'm saying reductive versus oxidative. And so variety to variety, it depends and it shifts. And there's also components that wines like pig pool, or I'd say Syrah fits in the category where there's certain compounds and certain things that are in Syrah. The peppery notes that you get, those are easily oxidized. So I'll keep some Syrah in an environment that maybe pushes some of those reductive characters. In Syrah, that's pepper, that's spice, that's kind of some of the meatiness and things like that. So I'll keep that in a larger vessel that doesn't see as much oxygen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks for the question.
Keep the questions coming.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to. there's only so much of me rambling that anybody should have to deal with. So the Gap is really lovely body to it. It's got just a really creamy character, but it's got great acidity to back that. So when it hits the palate, you feel the weight of the wine on there. It's silky, and the acidity just kind of comes in and gives you a really nice, clean finish. With all the whites that we do, and a lot of what you see in Paso, you get this amazing minerality that kind of helps give you a really nice, clean finish as well. Minerality is different things for different people. I grew up in the area here, and really like the kind of lingering finish that I get on my palate with white wines here is really reminiscent of as a kid running around the hills out here. We've had plenty of rain recently, so I mean you can attest to it. But the smell of the wet shale on the ground is just like it's right there present on the finish of the wine. It's just something that immediately kind of sparks the memory, takes me right back to that, running around as a kid. Another reason why I love Paso white wines.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So let's talk about a little bit of the, since the Gap is a blend there, which I feel like is the fun part to work with, because you really get to play with different varietals and have them play on your palate and your tongue a little differently and kind of hit you at different spots. So what's your thought process as, how much of which of varietal I should put in there when you go through the blending?
I come at it a few different ways, kind of depending on the day, I think. I'm a musician, so I definitely am, like a lot of other winemakers / musicians, think sometimes in terms of like musical composition. You know, what's bringing me, what's my melody, what's my counter melody to this, treble and bass, and how am I feeling the spectrum, and what's kind of the movement and the vibe that I'm feeling. I love listening to music while doing it. You just get in it, helps kind of get in a vibe and in a place. And if I'm not thinking that way, I am also kind of a kind of person that thinks about wines in terms of like personalities. It's the wine's got to kind of have a personality of its own, a vibe of its own, and it has to be something that it kind of catches you. If I'm not caught, if I'm not excited about it, if it doesn't stir me, then I wouldn't expect it to stir anybody else. You do that, and it's kind of where I start. But as you know, different than cooking, wine blending is like a complex matrix of different chemistries that are going on. And so sometimes, I'll taste the Roussanne and it has this smell and it has this component, and I'm like, oh, that is going to pair perfectly with this barrel of Grenache Blanc over here. And you think A plus B is going to be like AB, and A plus B creates something completely different. You get new aromas and new things that are happening in the blend of those that might not be present in either one initially. As you change alcohol levels, as you change, as you shift in pH, as you shift in all these things, new smells become, new aromatics become freed in the wine. Some aromatics become trapped in a wine. So you can have an idea of how it all will line up. You throw it together and it's completely different than what you think that way. As we've all seen this week, these guys have been tasting through all those 18s with me, 18 reds. Sometimes
a lot of blends. Yeah.
Sometimes you throw it together and you think, these are perfectly complementary pieces, and then what comes out the other end is a little wild, a little different. And so, shucks, you got to go back to the drawing board again and try some more wine. It's like,
yeah, that process is always very interesting. For you in particular, for me, it's always fun to go through what you put together. But we all have so many different palettes and things that we like. And you said it well yesterday. It's just like, I'm starting to know what you like and what you like. And so I know if I put a wine like this towards you, you're gonna be liking it or not. And so I think playing on that. But again, I think it's very representative of what people, the people that enjoy our wines. Again, not everybody has a favorite in terms of a varietal, but putting those together and having a crowd pleaser, there's something that everybody enjoys in certain ways. so we can all drink it. You know, it's always fun. But yeah, this past couple of days, it's been a lot of red wines.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question. Carolyn. From Carolyn, she says, Phil, what kind of music do you listen to while making your wines? I would say that depends, man, right?
All over the board. Man, oh man.
I was just thinking, did you listen to the 80s rock band when you make the Gap there? Does that sound like something that I'm you? I don't think that would fit in that. But
I think that's maybe more like would be like Hedge or Hedge of 3/4 territory. I listen to anything and everything. I grew up listening to actually a fair amount of 80s rock, Beach Boys. You know, I listen to a lot of classical or instrumental music as well. Throwing stuff together, it depends on how excited I am on the given morning. I think I start the day with something mellow like Balmoria, fantastic band. And then move my way into more lively types of things in different bands. Typically, always, I can't see even with really my only exclusion is probably the better way to put it. My only exclusion is I don't do a whole lot of country music. And as a guy with a lower registered voice, when I play places, everyone always asks me for country music. So I know a lot of country songs, but not my particular cup of tea. But hey, you can even catch me, I guess, on a given day.
I know when you listen to music back there, when you're like flowing, and when I like stay away. Stay away today.
I am definitely probably the most guilty of blasting music and forcing whatever I'm listening to onto everybody else that works here. So I try to keep my music selection here palatable for everybody. Okay. Do you have anything else to say regarding this?
No, I mean, I like the nose a lot on the Gap there. I think this is coming through very well. I think one thing we need to talk about is probably the aging of the white. So we mentioned the 18 in particular was a long fermentation process in the barrel. So you're looking at between the time we harvest it, which is about end of September, October is usually. So that's already 3 months of fermentation there. How long would you, historically, and moving on as well, like from now on, like what's the sweet spot? What do you think is the best aging time for the whites and what we're trying to do here?
So the white wines we played with a couple different aging programs. Really, I think we were forced at one point because we were flying through white wines to move to a bit briefer white wine cellaring period, and then actually really like the wines. I love the freshness of the wines. So to me, you know, when we land in anywhere from the 4 to 7 month range is typically kind of where we hit now, and it really, you know, I think with each passing vintage, I get more and more comfortable pushing that forward or back based on kind of what I'm seeing and noting the evolutions of the wines that we've made so far. So you know, that range right there tends to produce a nice fresh white wine. And you know, again, we're not aiming for, you know, much barrel influence on the whites. We're not looking to kind of get something that way. Mm-hmm. It's more so maybe going to be based on the acidity of each individual vintage and kind of where I feel like the acid, and again, getting back to that kind of lean, not so lean conversation we're having earlier, you know, where does the alcohol and the acid meet at a really nice spot where you've got good body, nice freshness, you know, good clean finish to the wine. Mm-hmm. And you still have all those pretty aromatics and things like that you're trying to hold on to with the white wine.
Right. Talking about the acidity, I think you mentioned that the longer you leave the wine in barrel, the more acidity you will lose over time. Yeah,
I mean, I think the acidity for a white wine is your lifeblood. You know, it's kind of like how you can age it. You know, how long you can age a white wine even at home. You open a bottle of white wine and it's got some pretty ripping acidity to it, and you can lay that white wine down for some time. I think that it's when you start getting to typically for most white wine consumers, when you start getting to a kind of a little, you know, fuller or fatter kind of finish to the wine, that, you know, maybe that's time to consume it for sure.
Right.
You know, with the way and the style we've been releasing these wines, I think I personally prefer Grenache Blanc on the early side. I mean, it's both Grenache and Grenache Blanc. I love youthful renditions of those. So, the distill from Jacob Toft, my bottle aging program for those wines is the car ride home, or whatever it takes to get the bottle to you. It's ready to go at that point in time. I think something like the Gap or the Pig Pool, you got time. The Pig Pool does some really, really fun things as you age it. The Gap, same kind of thing. Roussan does add some body and a little bit, a little bit of something there with that. So you've got that you can lean on as well. And so we've had, I think we still got some 13 white hanging out there. When we opened it not too long ago, it was tasting fantastic. So you definitely can age the wines if you like. I do think that the nice part about white wine is it is kind of ready to go out the gate for the most part. So, your choice.
Nice. Sweet. Do you have another question, Brendan?
Nope.
Okay.
We good?
No, we're good.
So yeah, moving forward again, to reiterate, shoot us wines that you'd like us to taste through. I kind of, honestly, when we were kicking around this idea, a few months ago, it was to get out there and taste through some wines that you guys have in your cellars, and kind of get you an idea of where it sits currently. I way prefer this than tasting it by myself and writing down a bunch of notes and then, peddling that off to somebody to read. This way we can kind of be a little more interactive with it. If you've got particular questions about the wines and where they sit, we can do that. So again, reach out, email us, comment, shoot us something on any kind of social media platform, and we'll be happy to take a look at that and try to make that happen. And then the other thing I guess to say, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us. These wines and several other wines are available online. Like a lot of us in Paso, we're trying to do what we can to mitigate the fact that you can't travel here and taste your stuff. So we're offering an additional 10% discount on wines and inclusive shipping. 3 bottles or more in California, 6 bottles or more out of California. So check it out.
I put the link. It's in the comments.
Producer Brandon put the link in the comments.
Hey, when's the next tasting?
So we will be doing this on a weekly basis. As long as Saturday around noon works for everybody, this is where we'll stick. If there's a more preferable time, I think we're happy to revisit that, seeing now this is the first run through. I'm sure there'll be slight shifts and changes to things, but we'll definitely try to stay consistent. Get together with you guys every Saturday at noon.
Next week, what's scheduled for next week is going to be the Rosé, the new release of the Ben. So we are releasing it this week to the club members there if you guys want to join in, and anybody actually, it's open online. It's going to be live, I believe, on Monday. And so we'll go through it next Saturday, so we get a chance to talk about it. Hopefully if you guys can join and open a bottle of wine as well, and then just throw questions at it. The rosé is always interesting. The setup process of making the rosé, for me, it's always very fascinating.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I think what maybe we'll do, we're just kicking around, but I've got a bottle of the 18 still hanging around. So maybe I'll bring the bottle of 18, we'll open the 19, we can kind of do a side-by-side of the rosé for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys want. Seriously. Well, let us know what you guys want to taste.
Yeah,
we can change it up.
We can change it up.
Again, if you have anything in your cellar that you don't want to open and you want us to do it, we can also do that. So it would be pretty fun for us and dip into some of the different wines there.
We had one more thing here.
Okay.
Rosé is going to be released on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
The
Dates are important. The 31st it will be then.
Alright.
So yeah, just make sure you keep an eye on that, and we'll be posting plenty about it. So looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
It looks amazing. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to see you guys next week. And shoot us questions on social media throughout this week. And thanks, Brendan, for answering all the comments and asking all the questions. So thank you very much,
right.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hold on.
Yep. I'll still hang out with you guys. These other guys.
And could you do that end right there too?